I came home early to surprise my boyfriend with dinner. Instead, I found him in bed with my best friend. They both froze when they saw me in the doorway, started stammering, making excuses, begging for forgiveness. What they didn't know, what nobody knew, was that I wasn't just Helen Tran, a mild-mannered accountant. I was Crimson Phoenix, the most feared crime boss in the city. And I was about to remind them why betrayal has consequences. Wait, she's a secret mafia queen? And her cheating boyfriend and backstabbing best friend have no idea? Oh, this is about to get legendary. Subscribe and hit that bell icon because the revenge that's coming is going to be absolutely savage. You do not want to miss this. For 3 years, I lived 2 lives. By day, I was Helen Tran, the quiet accountant at Morrison and Associates who brought homemade lunch to work in Tupperware containers, never missed a deadline, and whose biggest excitement was finding a good sale at Target. I dated Brian Jackson, a software engineer who thought debugging code was thrilling. My best friend Blanca Batista and I had weekly brunches where we discussed completely normal things, whether oat milk was worth the hype, which Netflix series we were binging, and her latest influencer brand deals. I was boring, predictable, safe. The kind of woman people forgot about the moment I left the room. By night, I was someone else entirely. Crimson Phoenix, the woman who'd inherited her father's criminal empire at 23 when the Volkov family murdered him during a negotiation that went wrong. They'd shot him 3 times in front of me, expecting his organization to crumble without leadership. They'd been wrong. I'd spent the past 5 years building that empire into something more powerful, more terrifying than my father had ever imagined. My organization controlled everything in this city that happened after dark: high-stakes gambling, luxury goods smuggling, information brokerage, corporate espionage, elite protection services. We didn't deal in drugs or human trafficking. Those were lines I refused to cross. But everything else? That was mine. I had 40 people on my direct payroll, and another 200 who worked for businesses I controlled. I'd negotiated treaties with 3 rival organizations and eliminated 2 others who couldn't be reasoned with. I'd made millionaires and ended careers with a single phone call. And nobody knew. Not Brian, who thought I worked late at the office when I was actually negotiating territory disputes in abandoned warehouses. Not Blanca, who thought my business trips were accounting conferences when I was really handling problems that required a more permanent solution. I kept my worlds completely separate. It was safer that way. Cleaner. Helen Tran lived in a modern penthouse I'd told everyone I inherited from a distant aunt. She drove a sensible Honda Civic. She did yoga on Sunday mornings and meal prepped on Sundays. Crimson Phoenix moved through the shadows, made decisions that would horrify Helen's coworkers, and carried the weight of an empire on her shoulders. For 3 years, I balanced both identities perfectly, until the day I came home early with Thai takeout and found them together, Brian and Blanca, in my bed, in the penthouse I'd bought with money from laundering operations but told them came from inheritance. They looked up at me with guilty faces, scrambling for the sheet, stammering excuses that sounded pathetic even to them. And something inside me went very, very cold. Because Helen Tran, the accountant, the girlfriend, the friend, might have cried, might have screamed, might have been devastated. But Crimson Phoenix? Crimson Phoenix had handled far worse betrayals than this. And she knew exactly how to make people regret their choices. The meeting with the Kozlov representatives had gone better than expected. Viktor Kozlov, the aging Russian boss who controlled the docks, had finally agreed to my terms for shared access to shipping routes. It had taken 6 months of negotiation, 3 minor territorial skirmishes, and 1 very pointed demonstration of my organization's reach, but we'd reached an accord. Dante, my second-in-command, had driven me back to my car, the one I kept in a secure garage downtown, completely separate from Helen Tran's life. "You handle that well," he'd said, his Brooklyn accent thick with approval. "Victor respects strength. You showed him plenty." "He respects self-interest more," I'd replied, changing out of my tactical jacket and into a cardigan I kept in my car. I made it clear that cooperation benefits him more than conflict. That's a language men like him understand. I'd driven home in my sensible Honda, thinking about the paperwork waiting for me at Morrison and Associates tomorrow. Quarterly reports for 3 of our biggest clients. Budget projections for next fiscal year. The kind of boring, normal work that Helen Tran did. It was nearly midnight when I parked in my building's garage and saw Blanca's white BMW in its designated visitor spot. I frowned. Blanca had mentioned a brand photo shoot tonight, something for a skincare company that was paying her $5,000 for Instagram posts. She should have been at some trendy studio in the Arts District, not at my building. Maybe the shoot had been canceled? Maybe she'd come by to vent about it over wine? I grabbed the Thai takeout I'd picked up on my way home, Brian's favorite from that place on 5th Street, and headed to the elevator. Our relationship had been comfortable lately. Stable. Brian had been talking about moving in together, maybe getting engaged by the end of the year. I'd been non-committal, not because I didn't care about him, but because I couldn't imagine how to navigate that conversation without revealing things I couldn't reveal. How do you tell someone you run a criminal empire? Hey honey, before we get married, I should mention I control most of the illegal operations in the metropolitan area. The elevator rose to the 20th floor, my floor. The penthouse. I heard sounds before I even put my key in the lock. Music. No, not music. Voices. Laughter. And something else that made my stomach clench. I opened the door quietly. The living room was dark except for the light coming from my bedroom down the hall. My bedroom door was open, which was strange because I always closed it when I left. I set the Thai food down on the kitchen counter, my mind already calculating possibilities. Had someone broken in? Was Brian in danger? My hand moved automatically to my purse, where I kept a small pistol. 5 years as Crimson Phoenix had trained certain reflexes. I moved silently down the hallway toward my bedroom and stopped in the doorway. Brian was in my bed. My 1,000-thread count sheets, the ones I'd splurged on because good sleep was essential when you ran an empire. He wasn't alone. Blanca was with him. Wearing my robe, the silk one I'd bought in Tokyo last year during a business trip that had actually been a weapons negotiation. They were tangled together, kissing, completely oblivious to my presence. I stood there, Thai food getting cold in my hands, watching my boyfriend and my best friend betray me in my own bed. Something in my chest went quiet. Cold. The feeling I got before making a difficult decision in my other life. Helen Tran would cry, would scream, would demand explanations. Crimson Phoenix just calculated, analyzed the situation, assessed the threat, determined the appropriate response. I cleared my throat. They froze. Literally froze like someone had paused a video. Then Brian's head whipped around, his face draining of all color. Helen, his voice cracked. I can explain. Blanca sat up, pulling the sheet to cover herself, her expression cycling rapidly through shock, guilt, and something that looked uncomfortably like satisfaction. It's not what it looks like, she said, and I almost laughed at the sheer absurdity of that statement. I set the Thai food down carefully on my dresser. Didn't yell. Didn't cry. Didn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. Get out, I said quietly. Helen, please, just listen. Brian started scrambling out of bed, reaching for his clothes. Both of you, get dressed. Get out. Now. My voice was calm, almost pleasant. The tone I used when giving orders to my organization, when I expected immediate compliance and would tolerate no argument. They must have heard something in it, because they moved quickly, silently, like prey animals who'd suddenly realized they were in the presence of a predator. Blanca pulled on her dress, designer, probably paid for with money from her latest brand deal. Her hands shook as she zipped it up. Brian fumbled with his jeans, looking anywhere but at me. Can we please just talk about this? No. Helen, I made a mistake. You made a choice. Multiple choices from the look of things. How long? He froze. What? How long have you been sleeping with my best friend? Each word came out precise, sharp. In my bed, in my home, while I was working late to support the life we were building? The irony wasn't lost on me. They thought I was working late at an accounting firm. In reality, I was building an empire. 2 months, Blanca said quietly. At least she had the decency to be honest. It started 2 months ago. 2 months. 60 days of lies. 60 days of brunches where Blanca sat across from me and pretended to be my friend while sleeping with my boyfriend. Get out, I repeated. They gathered their things, Blanca's purse, Brian's shoes, the evidence of their betrayal scattered across my bedroom. They walked past me carefully, like I might explode at any moment. I watched them leave, heard the front door close, and then stood alone in my bedroom. The bedroom where I slept as Helen Tran, dreaming of a normal life. The bedroom that now felt contaminated, violated. I walked to my window, looking out over the city. My city. The one I controlled from the shadows. Helen Tran would spend tonight crying, calling friends for support, eating ice cream and watching sad movies. But I wasn't just Helen Tran. I was Crimson Phoenix. And Crimson Phoenix didn't cry. She planned. I pulled out my personal phone, the one Helen Tran used, and blocked both their numbers. Then I pulled out my burner phone, the one connected to my real life. I called Dante. He answered on the second ring. Boss? Everything okay? We have a problem, I said calmly. The personal kind. What do you need? Full background checks on Brian Jackson and Blanca Batista. Everything. Financial records, communications, associates, habits. I want to know everything about them by tomorrow morning. There was a pause. Did they do something? They betrayed me. Another pause, longer this time. Do you want them gone? The question was asked carefully, professionally. Dante had made people disappear before. It was part of his job description. No, I said.
Nothing permanent.
But I want options. Leverage. Everything they care about, everything they're hiding, every weakness they have.
Can you do that?
Consider it done. His voice turned hard. Nobody hurts you and gets away with it, boss. I know. That's why I called you. I hung up and sat down on my bed, the bed that would need new sheets, possibly a new mattress. The bed that two people I trusted had violated. Tomorrow, Helen Tran will go to work like nothing happened. Would smile at coworkers, finish her reports, eat her homemade lunch. But behind the scenes, Crimson Phoenix would be gathering information, building a strategy, preparing to systematically dismantle everything Brian and Blanca cared about. They thought they'd betrayed a harmless accountant. They had no idea what they'd actually done. They'd betrayed a queen. And queens didn't forgive betrayal. They crushed it. Dante met me at Velvet, one of my legitimate businesses, an upscale nightclub that catered to the city's elite. To the public, I was a silent partner. In reality, I owned it outright, used it for meetings, and kept an office on the third floor that very few people knew existed. It was 2 a.m. The club was still packed below, bass thumping through the floors. Up here, it was quiet, insulated, safe. Dante spread a folder across my desk. He was a big man, 6'4", broad-shouldered, with hands that looked like they could crush skulls. They had on occasion. But right now, those hands were gentle with the documents, careful not to wrinkle anything. Brian Jackson, he said, tapping the first set of papers. 30 years old, software engineer at Nexus Technologies. Salary, $90,000 a year. Seems stable on the surface. And beneath the surface? Gambling problem. Online poker, mostly. Sports betting. He's into various bookies for about $47,000. I leaned forward. $47,000? That's conservative. Could be more. Dante pulled out bank statements. He's been hiding it well, separate accounts, cash withdrawals that don't show up on statements you'd see. But I have friends in financial institutions. Friends who owe me favors. Friends who owed Crimson Phoenix favors, he meant. Who holds his debts? Mix of independent operators and one of the smaller organizations. The Mendoza crew. I knew the Mendoza crew. Small-time operation, mostly gambling and some light protection rackets. They operated on the fringes of my territory, not big enough to be a threat, not legitimate enough to be allies. Can we buy his debt? Dante's smile was slow and predatory. Already made contact. They'll sell for $60,000, premium for taking it off their hands. Want me to close the deal?
Do it.
But don't let them know who's buying. Use one of our shell corporations. Consider it done. He moved to the second folder.
Blanca Batista.
29, social media influencer. Claims to make 6 figures a year from brand deals and sponsored posts. Claims? Actually makes closer to 70,000. She inflates her numbers, fakes engagement metrics, uses bots to pump up her follower count. Most legitimate brands have started dropping her. She's desperate to maintain the lifestyle. I thought about Blanca's constant posts, designer clothes, exotic vacations, expensive restaurants. I'd thought she was successful, thriving. She'd been faking it, just like she'd been faking our friendship. She's jealous, Dante continued. Of you specifically. Got screenshots of messages with other influencer friends where she talks about how unfair it is that you have this amazing penthouse and inherited money while she has to work for everything. Inherited money, I repeated flatly. That's what you told them, right? That some aunt left you everything? Yes. It had been a convenient lie. Easier than explaining that I'd bought the penthouse with money from my father's empire. She resents it, resents you, has for at least a year based on the messages I found. Dante's expression darkened. The affair with Brian started because she wanted to take something from you, to prove she could. Something cold settled in my stomach. Not hurt, I was past hurt. Just cold calculation. She wanted to prove she was better than me. That's the read I'm getting. She saw Brian as a prize. Something that belonged to you, that she could claim. I stood, walked to the window that overlooked the club below. From here, I could see the VIP section where city councilmen and business executives mingled, having no idea that the woman who controlled their secrets owned the building they stood in. Tell me about their connection. How did it start? Brian's been going to her for advice for 3 months. Claimed he was stressed about work, about your relationship. She played sympathetic friend, suggested drinks to talk about it. It escalated from there. Does he love her? Doubt it. From his messages, he's using her as an escape. Someone who thinks he's interesting, who doesn't know about his gambling debts, who makes him feel successful.
Dante paused.
He was planning to string you both along. Keep you for stability while having her for excitement. Classic. Predictable. Pathetic. What else? Brian's mother is sick.
Cancer.
He's been sending her money for treatment. That's part of why his debt is so high. He borrowed from the wrong people to cover her medical bills. I turned back to Dante. Is that supposed to make me sympathetic? Just giving you the complete picture. He held up his hands. You asked for everything. That's everything. I thought about Brian's mother. I'd met her twice, a sweet woman who'd been nothing but kind to me. She didn't deserve to suffer, because her son was a cheating idiot. But that wasn't my problem right now. Blanca's family? Parents in California. She doesn't talk to them much, some falling out about her career choices. She's got a younger sister in college that she helps support financially. That's actually legitimate. She sends money every month. So Blanca had people she cared about. People who depended on her. Good. That gave me leverage. Recommendations. I asked Dante. For Brian, we buy his debt, call it in immediately. He can't pay, so we renegotiate terms that put him under our control. For Blanca, we systematically contact her sponsors, share proof of her fake engagement metrics, destroy her income stream. Within 2 weeks, they're both desperate. It was a good plan. Efficient.
Cool.
Exactly what they deserved.
Do it, I said.
But slowly. I don't want them connecting the dots back to me yet. Make it look like bad luck. Random coincidences. You want them to suffer without knowing why? I want them to think their lives are falling apart naturally. Then, when they're at their lowest, I want them to realize I orchestrated all of it. Dante's expression shifted to something like pride. That's cold, boss. They earned it. My phone buzzed. Helen Tran's phone. A text from Brian. Please, can we talk? I know I messed up. I love you.
Give me a chance to explain.
I showed it to Dante, who snorted. You going to respond? Eventually. When I'm ready. I typed back. I need time to think. Don't contact me for a few days. Please respect that. Reasonable. Measured. Exactly what Helen Tran would say. A text from Blanca came 30 seconds later. Helen, I'm so sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. Our friendship means everything to me.
Please don't hate me.
I showed this one to Dante too. She's scared, he observed. Worried about losing your friendship. She should be worried about a lot more than that. I typed back. I'm hurt and angry, but I don't want to make any emotional decisions while emotional. Let me have some space. We'll talk when I'm ready. Again, measured, mature, exactly what Helen Tran would say. Neither of them would suspect that Helen Tran was also Crimson Phoenix, that their mild-mannered friend was systematically planning their destruction.
One more thing, Dante said.
Viktor Kozlov has been asking questions about you. I still went. What kind of questions? About Helen Tran specifically. One of his guys was seen outside Morrison and Associates last week, watching the building. Then yesterday, someone followed your Honda from work. This was bad. Very bad. Viktor Kozlov was an old-school Russian mob, the kind of man who believed women belonged in the kitchen or in bed, not in boardrooms or running organizations. He never liked the idea of Crimson Phoenix, had only agreed to our treaty because I'd proven I was stronger than he expected. But if he was investigating my civilian identity, does he know? I asked. Not yet. But he's suspicious. Smart money says he'll figure it out eventually. I processed this, adding it to my mental list of problems. Brian and Blanca's betrayal. Victor's investigation. The normal challenges of running a criminal empire. Sometimes I miss being just Helen Tran. When my biggest problem was meeting deadlines and dealing with difficult clients. Increased security on both my identities, I told Dante. Discreet surveillance on anyone watching me. If Victor gets close to the truth, I need to know immediately. You got it. He stood, gathering the folders. What do you want me to do with these? Leave them. I'm going to study everything. Know them better than they know themselves. After Dante left, I sat in my office, spreading the documents across my desk. This was my life now. By day, Helen Tran, accountant, betrayed girlfriend. By night, Crimson Phoenix, crime boss, orchestrating revenge. I pulled out a notebook and started making lists. Brian's weaknesses. Blanca's dependencies. Pressure points. Leverage. By the time the sun rose, I had a complete strategy. In 2 weeks, their lives would be in ruins. And they'd never see it coming. 3 days later, I met Brian at a cafe in neutral territory. I'd spent those 3 days being Helen Tran at Morrison and Associates, processing payroll reports and pretending my life hadn't imploded. My coworkers had noticed I was quiet, but I'd blamed it on a stomach bug. No one suspected the truth. Behind the scenes, Crimson Phoenix had been very busy. Brian's gambling debt had been acquired by one of my shell corporations. Blanca's 3 biggest sponsors had received anonymous tips about her fake engagement metrics. Neither had connected their sudden problems back to me. Brian arrived at the cafe 15 minutes early, looking haggard. He'd texted me 43 times in 3 days. I'd answered exactly once, agreeing to this meeting. He stood when he saw me, his face a mixture of hope and desperation. Helen, thank you for coming. I sat across from him, ordered a black coffee, and waited. I'm so sorry, he started immediately. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I need you to know how sorry I am. It was a mistake. A stupid, terrible mistake. For 2 months. He flinched. I know. There's no excuse. I was confused, stressed about work, and Blanca was just there. She understood. Understood what? That you wanted to cheat on me?
No. God, no.
I mean, she understood the pressure I was under. Work has been intense, and I just needed someone to talk to who didn't. Who didn't do what? Care about you? Support you? I kept my voice level. Brian, I worked late constantly to build our life together. I was patient when you said you weren't ready to move in. I supported your career. What exactly was I failing to provide? He looked down at his coffee. It wasn't about you. It was about me being an idiot.
At least he was right about that.
Why Blanca? I asked. I don't know. She was just available. I'm interested. She made me feel Special? Important? I leaned forward. Let me tell you what you actually felt. You felt like you were getting away with something. Like you were clever enough to fool me. That's what this was about, not stress, not confusion.
Ego.
His face reddened. That's not fair. Fair. I laughed without humor. You're going to talk to me about fair? You slept with my best friend in my bed, and you want to discuss fairness? You're right.
I'm sorry.
He ran his hands through his hair. I want to fix this. Tell me how to fix this. Here was my chance. Time to play Helen Tran perfectly. I don't know if you can, I said, softening my voice just slightly. But if you're serious about making amends, you need to get your life together. What do you mean? I mean you need to deal with your problems. Be honest. Work on yourself. Show me you're capable of being the man you pretended to be. He looked confused, and I realized he didn't know I knew about the gambling.
Perfect.
Your debts, I said carefully. Your financial problems. I've known for months, Brian. I see our statements. I know you've been hiding things. His face went white. Helen, I can explain. I don't need explanations. I need action. Get help. Fix it. And maybe, we can discuss whether there's anything left to salvage here. I was giving him hope. Just enough to keep him desperate, to keep him trying. Just enough to make the eventual revelation more devastating. I will, he said eagerly. I promise. I'm going to fix everything. I'll get help, I'll be honest. I'll prove to you that I can change. Good. I stood. But Brian, if I find out you're lying about anything else, if there's one more secret or betrayal, we're done.
Permanently.
Understand. I understand. I swear, Helen, I'm going to make this right. I left him there, hopeful and desperate. By tonight, the bookies holding his debt would make contact. They'd inform him that his debt had been sold to new management. Management that wanted immediate payment. He'd panic. Try to negotiate.
Fail.
And he had no idea that the new management was sitting across from him, sipping coffee, playing the heartbroken girlfriend perfectly. That afternoon, I met Blanca at a wine bar she'd suggested. She arrived wearing designer athleisure, hair perfect, makeup flawless. But I could see the strain around her eyes, the way she fidgeted with her phone. She'd already lost 2 sponsorships. A third had contacted her this morning asking for proof of her engagement metrics. Helen, she said, standing to hug me. I let her, feeling nothing. We sat, ordered wine, and she immediately started crying. I'm so sorry, she sobbed. I don't know what came over me. I was jealous and stupid and jealous. I interrupted gently. Of what? Of you. Your perfect life, your amazing apartment, She stopped, realizing she'd said too much. My inherited money? I supplied. She looked down. I know it's not your fault. I know you didn't do anything wrong. But sometimes it just felt so unfair that everything came so easily to you while I have to fight for everything. Interesting. She actually believed this. Nothing came easily, I said quietly. You just didn't see the work because you weren't paying attention. I know, and that makes it worse. You've been nothing but a good friend, and I betrayed you. More tears. Please, Helen. Our friendship means everything to me. I can't lose you. I reached across the table, squeezed her hand. I don't want to lose you either, Blanca. You're like a sister to me. I watched her face transform with hope and relief. Really? You mean that? Of course. We've been friends for 7 years. One mistake, even a huge one, doesn't erase that. I paused. But I need time, and I need to see that you're serious about being better. I am. I swear, I'll do anything. Then work on yourself. Figure out why you felt the need to take something from me instead of building something for yourself. Maybe see a therapist? She nodded eagerly. I will. I promise. We talked for another hour. She told me about her falling sponsorships, her money troubles, her fear that she was losing everything she'd built. I made sympathetic noises, offered advice, suggested she focus on authentic content instead of chasing trends. Never once did I mention that I was the reason her sponsors were dropping her. By the time we parted, she was smiling, relieved, convinced that our friendship would survive. She had no idea I'd already decided exactly how much forgiveness cost. And she couldn't afford it. Okay, so she's got criminal resources, a loyal crew, and detailed dirt on both of them? And they still don't know who she really is? This is about to get diabolical. Hit subscribe because the revenge Helen has planned is going to be absolutely chef's kiss devastating. You need to see this. That night, I returned to my penthouse. I'd replace the sheets. Burn the old ones, actually, in one of my organization's industrial incinerators. Some violations couldn't be washed away. Dante called at midnight. Brian got the call from his new creditors. They're demanding full payment by the end of the week. How'd he react?
Panicked.
He tried to negotiate, offered to pay in installments. They refused. It's pay up or face consequences. And Blanca? Lost her 4th sponsorship this afternoon. She's down to 2 small brands and her engagement rate is tanking. Other influencers are starting to notice and ask questions. Good. I poured myself whiskey. The expensive kind I kept for Crimson Phoenix, not the mid-range stuff Helen Tran pretended to enjoy. Keep the pressure steady. I want them desperate but not destroyed. Not yet. You're enjoying this. Shouldn't I? They betrayed me, humiliated me. They deserve to suffer. No argument here. Just making sure you're thinking clearly. I'm always thinking clearly. That's why I'm in charge. He laughed. Fair point. Oh, and boss? Victor's people are still asking questions. They tracked you to the cafe today. My hand tightened on the glass. They followed me? Discreetly. They don't know they've been made. I've got our people on them. I need to know what Victor knows. Now. Working on it. I've got someone inside his organization. Should have intel by tomorrow. Make it tonight, boss.
Tonight, Dante.
If Victor's figured out who I am, if he's planning to use that against me, I need to know before he makes a move. Understood. I'll get you answers. After he hung up, I stood at my window, looking out over the city. 2 problems. Brian and Blanca's betrayal. Victor's investigation. One was personal. One was business. But both threatened to expose who I really was. And I'd worked too hard, sacrificed too much, to let either destroy what I'd built. Tomorrow, Helen Tran would go to work, file reports, smile at colleagues. But tonight, Crimson Phoenix would make plans. Plans that would remind everyone why betrayal had consequences, why secrets had power, and why underestimating Helen Tran was the last mistake anyone ever made. Brian called me at 11 p.m. on Thursday, his voice shaking. Helen, I need to ask you something. It's important. I was in my home office, the one Helen Tran used for personal finance management, reviewing quarterly reports for 3 of my front businesses. Completely legitimate enterprises that happen to launder money and provide cover for my operations. What is it? He paused. Do you know anyone who could help me with a financial problem? I set down my pen. What kind of problem? I owe some people money. A lot of money. And they just called in the debt. I have until tomorrow to pay, or, his voice cracked. They were very clear about the or. How much? 47,000. I let the silence stretch, as if I was shocked. In reality, I knew exactly how much he owed because I owned the debt. Brian, how did you accumulate that much debt? Gambling. I have a problem.
I know that now.
But these people, Helen, they're not normal bookies. They're connected. Dangerous.
I'm scared.
Can your parents help? My mom's medical bills wipe them out. I can't ask them for more. Friends. I've tried. No one has that kind of cash available. He took a shaky breath. You have your inheritance. Your savings. I know it's a lot to ask, but... You want me to loan you $47,000? I'll pay you back.
I swear.
I'll get a second job, Brian. My voice was gentle.
Kind.
My inheritance is tied up in investments. Long-term holdings that I can't liquidate without massive penalties. I don't have $47,000 in liquid assets. This was technically true. Helen Tran's official finances showed moderate savings and careful investing. Crimson Phoenix's accounts held millions, but those were completely separate. There must be something.
I'm sorry.
I wish I could help, but I can't. The desperation in his voice was almost satisfying. Helen, please. These people, they made it very clear what happens if I don't pay. Then maybe you should go to the police. The police can't help with this kind of debt. Then I don't know what to tell you. I paused. Brian, I care about you, but I can't enable this. You need to face the consequences of your choices. You're punishing me for what happened with Blanca. I'm not punishing you. I'm just not rescuing you. I kept my voice calm. You made these choices. You borrowed this money. You gambled it away. Those are your consequences, not mine. Some girlfriend you are, he snapped, fear making him cruel. I'm trying to be your ex-girlfriend. You're the one who keeps calling. He hung up on me. I smiled, took a sip of wine, and sent a text to Dante. Brian tried to borrow money. Refused him. Proceed with Phase 2. Phase 2 was simple. Offer him a way out. My organization would discover his debt, reach out with an alternative payment plan. He'd work for us. Nothing illegal from his perspective, just some freelance IT work, some consulting on security systems. She's in college. I've been helping her with tuition. I can't ask her for money. I made sympathetic noises while doing math in my head. Blanca was leveraged to the maximum, living beyond her means, dependent on an income that I'd just eliminated. She'd be desperate soon. Really desperate. I might have some connections, I said slowly. People who could help you find work. Legitimate work, not influencer stuff. Really? What kind of work? Administrative, maybe. Office management. It wouldn't pay as much as your sponsorships, but it would be stable. I don't know anything about office work. You know, social media, marketing, brand management. Those are transferable skills. Let me make some calls. Her relief was palpable. Thank you. Helen, you're the best friend anyone could ask for. That's what friends do, I said. We help each other. After I hung up, I texted Dante again. Find Blanca a position at one of our front companies. Something low-level, where we can watch her. Make it seem legitimate. His response came immediately. Already on it. We've got a marketing position open at the gallery. She'd be perfect. The gallery was one of my favorites, an art gallery in the warehouse district that sold legitimate artwork while also serving as a money laundering operation. Blanca would handle social media and event planning, completely unaware that her new employer was the friend she'd betrayed. It was almost too perfect. Saturday night, my phone rang at 2 a.m. Dante's name on the screen. I answered immediately. He only called this late for emergencies. Boss, we have a problem. Victor knows. I sat up in bed. How much does he know? Everything. He's got photos of you at the warehouse last month, screenshots of communications, even testimonies from people in our organization who've been flipped. Flipped?
Who?
3 of our lower-level guys. Small fish, but they confirmed enough details to make Victor's case solid. I was already out of bed, pulling on clothes. Where are you? Your office at Velvet. You need to get here now. I drove faster than Helen Tran ever would, my mind racing through scenarios. If Victor knew my identity, he had leverage. Massive leverage. He could expose me publicly, ending both my civilian life and my position in the organization. Crime bosses couldn't operate effectively when their real identities were known. Or he could blackmail me, force me to cede territory, make concessions that would weaken my position. Or, worst case, he could simply eliminate me and take over my operations. I arrived at Velvet at 2:47 a.m., entering through the private entrance that led directly to my office. Dante was waiting with Maya, my lawyer. Maya's presence meant this was serious. I only called her in for major legal threats. Show me everything, I said. Dante spread photos across my desk. Me entering warehouses. Me at meetings. Me in tactical gear during the one time I'd personally handled a problem that required force. He's been tracking you for 6 weeks, Maya said. The question is what he plans to do with this information. He could go public, I said. Expose me to law enforcement. Unlikely. That creates as many problems for him as it does for you. More likely, he's planning to use it as leverage in negotiation. What does he want? That's the question. Maya pulled up her tablet. Victor's been expanding aggressively. He wants your dock access, your smuggling routes, and most importantly, your information network. My information network was my most valuable asset. Over 5 years, I'd built a system of informants, hackers, and insiders who could get me intelligence on anyone in the city. Politicians, business leaders, rival criminals. I had dirt on everyone who mattered. If he gets that network, he becomes the most powerful player in the city, Dante said. Then he can't have it. I looked at both of them. Options. Give him what he wants, Maya said. Negotiate a deal that preserves your position while satisfying his demands. Absolutely not. Go to war, Dante offered. Strike first, strike hard. He's strong, but we're stronger if we move quickly. That would destabilize the entire city. 3 other organizations would use the chaos to make their own moves. Or, Maya said carefully, you go public first. Control the narrative. Reveal your identity on your own terms before he can weaponize it.
Isterte her.
That's insane. Is it? You've built legitimate businesses, maintained legal distance from most operations. If you frame it right, if you present yourself as someone trying to reform the criminal underworld, making it less violent and more controlled, you might survive public exposure. I'd be arrested immediately. Not necessarily. You're careful. We've made sure of that. Most of your operations are technically legal or, at least, difficult to prosecute. And if you offer to cooperate with authorities in reducing violent crime. She trailed off, but I understood the implication. I could become a confidential informant. Trade information on rival organizations in exchange for immunity. Publicly reform while privately maintaining power. It was audacious. Dangerous. Possibly brilliant. I need to think about this, I said. You don't have time, Dante warned. Victor's making his move. We intercepted communication suggesting he's planning something major. What kind of something? We don't know yet. But boss? Whatever it is, it's happening soon. My phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize. I answered. Yes, Ms. Tran. Victor's voice, heavily accented. Or should I say, Crimson Phoenix? My blood ran cold. What do you want?
To meet. Tomorrow. Noon.
The restaurant on 7th and Main. Come alone. And if I refuse? Then by sunset tomorrow, everyone in this city will know your secret.
Police.
Rivals. The media. Everyone. He hung up. I looked at Dante and Maya. We have until noon tomorrow to decide how to handle this. Boss, Dante said quietly. Whatever you decide, we're with you. I know. I sat down heavily. But this time, I don't think loyalty will be enough. I didn't sleep Saturday night. Instead, I sat in my penthouse, reviewing every piece of information I had on Viktor Kozlov, every move he'd made in the past decade, every weakness he'd ever shown. By 6 a.m., I'd made my decision. I would meet with Viktor, hear his demands, and then, depending on what he wanted, I'd either negotiate or destroy him. But first, I had to handle the Brian problem. Because at 7 a.m., Brian called me, and he wasn't alone. Helen. His voice was strained. I'm with some people who want to talk to you. A new voice came on the line. Accent. Russian. My stomach dropped. Ms. Tran. This is Alexei. I work for Mr. Kozlov. We have your boyfriend. Well, ex-boyfriend, yes? He owes us money. I'm aware of his debts. What does that have to do with me? Mr. Brian says you have resources. Inheritance, he calls it. We think maybe you pay his debt. We let him go. Victor had kidnapped Brian to get to me because he knew my identity and was using my civilian life as leverage. This was worse than I'd thought. How much? I asked, keeping my voice steady. 60,000. Covers his debt plus interest for inconvenience. I don't have that kind of liquid capital. Then find it. You have until noon. Mr. Kozlov will be in touch with location. They hung up. I immediately called Dante. Victor has Brian. What? He bought Brian's debt. He's using him as leverage. They're demanding 60,000 by noon. That's the same time as your meeting with Victor. I know. It's coordinated. He's showing me how much control he has over my civilian life. What do you want to do? I thought about Brian. The man who'd betrayed me, cheated on me, lied to me for months. The man who was now in danger because of who I really was. I could let him die. Wash my hands. One less problem to deal with. But that wasn't who I was. I didn't kill innocent people, and for all his faults, Brian didn't deserve to die. We get him back, I said. But on my terms. Where are they holding him? Unknown. We're tracking the call now. Find him. I want a location before noon. Boss, if we assault Victor's people, that's an act of war. Then war it is. I'm not letting him use my civilian life as a weapon. By 10 a.m., we had a location. An abandoned auto shop in the industrial district. 3 of Victor's men guarding Brian.
Dante wanted to send a full team.
I overruled him.
I'm going, I said.
This is personal now. Boss, I need Brian to see who I really am, to understand exactly what world he stumbled into. This has to be me. Maya grabbed my arm. Helen, if you expose yourself to him, there's no going back. He'll know. Your cover will be completely blown. My cover's already compromised. Victor knows. At this point, controlling the narrative matters more than maintaining secrecy. I changed into tactical gear. Black cargo pants, reinforced jacket, boots designed for movement. Strapped on body armor, secured weapons. A handgun at my hip, a knife strapped to my thigh, a backup pistol at my ankle. This was Crimson Phoenix. The real one. No more Accountant Helen playing pretend. Dante drove us to the location. 2 more vehicles followed with backup teams. How do you want to play this? He asked. We go in quiet. Secure the perimeter. I'll handle the extraction personally. Why you? Because when Brian sees me, I want it to be unmistakable who's in control. We arrived at 11:30 a.m. The auto shop was exactly as our intelligence suggested. Rundown, isolated, perfect for holding someone. I moved toward the entrance, my team spreading out to cover all exits. The door was unlocked. Arrogant. Victor's men didn't expect an assault. Voices. Russian. 3 men, as expected. And Brian's voice panicked. I don't understand what you want from me. I don't have anything. I stepped into the garage. All 3 guards turned.
Saw me.
Reached for their weapons. I wouldn't, I said calmly. Red laser dots appeared on each of their chests. My team, positioned outside, had clear shots through the garage's broken windows. The guards froze. Drop your weapons.
Kick them away.
Hands on your heads. They complied slowly, carefully. Brian's voice from behind them. Helen. I stepped into his line of sight. His eyes went wide. He was tied to a chair, face bruised, shirt torn, but alive. Helen, he repeated, his voice strangled. What are you doing here? How did you? Quiet, I said, not looking at him. To the guards. Tell Victor that Crimson Phoenix sends her regards. And that taking hostages was a mistake he'll regret. One of them, the leader, probably sneered. Victor is not afraid of a little girl playing gangster. He should be. I shot him, not fatally, in the shoulder, precisely placed to incapacitate without killing. He went down screaming. The other 2 guards stared in shock. Take him and go, I told them. You have 30 seconds before I change my mind about letting you live. They grabbed their wounded companion and ran. Dante entered behind them, securing the perimeter. I finally looked at Brian. His face had gone absolutely white. He was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. Helen, he whispered. What? Who are you? I holstered my weapon and walked toward him. I'm exactly who I've always been. You just weren't paying attention. I cut his bonds with my tactical knife. He stood on shaking legs, unable to take his eyes off me. The gun, he said. The gear. The way you just shot someone. We need to go.
Now.
We'll talk later. Talk. Talk. You just. His voice rose to near hysteria. What the hell is happening? What's happening? I said, grabbing his arm and pulling him toward the exit. Is that you gambled with the wrong people, ended up in debt to an organization that's currently at war with me, and nearly got yourself killed because you couldn't keep it in your pants. At war with you? What is that even? We emerged from the garage. Brian saw my team, 6 armed people in tactical gear, surrounding us in protective formation. Oh my God, he breathed. Oh my God, you're a crime boss. The term you're looking for is crime boss. I pushed him toward Dante's vehicle. Get in. We'll debrief at a secure location. Debrief? Helen, It's not Helen. Not right now. Right now, I'm Crimson Phoenix. And you're a liability. I just risked my people's lives to save. So get in the car before I change my mind about whether you were worth the effort. He got in the car. As we drove away from the auto shop, I caught his reflection in the rearview mirror. He looked terrified.
Shocked.
Completely disoriented.
Good.
He was finally seeing me clearly. And he was terrified of what he'd found. She just rescued him in full Mafia, queen mode. His face when he realized who she really is? Iconic. But wait, Blanca still doesn't know. And Victor is still out there. Subscribe because the final chapters are going to be absolutely wild. The confrontation that's coming? Legendary. We took Brian to a safe house in the warehouse district, a nondescript building that housed one of my legitimate operations on the ground floor and served as an emergency facility for my organization above. He sat on a couch in the second-floor apartment, staring at nothing, his hands shaking. I'd changed out of tactical gear into jeans and a simple t-shirt. Not Helen Tran's careful business casual. Not Crimson Phoenix's combat wear.
Just me.
Dante stood guard outside. Maya was en route with medical supplies to check Brian's injuries. I poured 2 whiskeys and handed one to Brian. He took it automatically, drank it in one swallow, then looked at me like he'd never seen me before. How long? He asked finally. How long what? How long have you been? He gestured vaguely. This. 5 years. Since my father died. Your father was Crimson Phoenix before me. I inherited the organization when he was murdered by a rival family. Crimson Phoenix. He laughed, a sound edging toward hysteria. I've heard that name. Everyone in this city has heard that name. The phantom crime boss nobody can identify. The organization that controls everything illegal worth controlling. That's me. And Helen Tran? The accountant? The girlfriend who made me lunch and worried about quarterly reports. Also me. He set down his glass, his hands still shaking. You've been lying to me for 3 years. Yes. About everything. About this part of my life, yes. Everything else was real. Real. His voice rose. How can any of it be real when you? He couldn't seem to finish the sentence. I'm still the woman you dated. I still made you lunch.
I still cared about you.
Those parts weren't lies. You just shot someone in the shoulder. He'll live. That's not the point. Brian stood, pacing. You shot someone like it was nothing. You have armed guards. You run a criminal empire.
Ido.
And you never thought to mention this? I stood too, keeping my voice level. Would you have understood? Would you have accepted it? Or would you have run, possibly to the police, and gotten yourself killed? He opened his mouth, closed it. That's what I thought. I continued. I kept you separate from this world to protect you, to give you a normal life, to preserve the one piece of myself that wasn't covered in blood and compromise. But I was never really with you, was I? I was with a version you created. A mask. He took it automatically, drank it in one swallow, then looked at me like he'd never seen me before. How long? He asked finally. How long what? How long have you been? He gestured vaguely. This. 5 years. Since my father died. Your father was Crimson Phoenix before me. I inherited the organization when he was murdered by a rival family. Crimson Phoenix. He laughed, a sound edging toward hysteria. I've heard that name. Everyone in this city has heard that name. The phantom crime boss nobody can identify. The organization that controls everything illegal worth controlling. That's me. And Helen Tran, the accountant? The girlfriend who made me lunch and worried about quarterly reports. Also me. He set down his glass, his hands still shaking. You've been lying to me for 3 years. Yes. About everything. About this part of my life, yes. Everything else was real. Real. His voice rose. How can any of it be real when you're a when you? He couldn't seem to finish the sentence. I'm still the woman you dated. I still made you lunch.
I still cared about you.
Those parts weren't lies. You just shot someone in the shoulder. He'll live. That's not the point. Brian stood, pacing. You shot someone like it was nothing. You have armed guards. You run a criminal empire.
Ido.
And you never thought to mention this? I stood too, keeping my voice level. Would you have understood? Would you have accepted it? Or would you have run, possibly to the police, and gotten yourself killed? He opened his mouth, closed it. That's what I thought. I continued. I kept you separate from this world to protect you, to give you a normal life, to preserve the one piece of myself that wasn't covered in blood and compromise. But I was never really with you, was I? I was with a version you created. A mask. Aren't we all masks to some degree? I moved closer. You showed me the Brian you wanted me to see. Stable, employed, faithful. Turns out that was a mask too, considering I found you in bed with my best friend. He flinched. That's not the same. Isn't it? We both lied. We both hid things. The only difference is, my lies kept you alive. Yours just made me a fool. Helen, I saved you today, I interrupted. Viktor Kozlov, the man whose people kidnapped you, did it to get to me. Because he discovered my identity and decided to use my civilian life as leverage. You were collateral damage in a war you didn't even know existed. So this is my fault.
No.
It's mine. For thinking I could keep 2 lives separate. For believing I could protect you by hiding who I really am. Brian sat back down heavily. What happens now? Now? You have a choice. I sat across from him. You can leave. Walk away from all of this. I'll pay your debts, set you up somewhere safe, and you'll never hear from me again. And the alternative? You stay. Accept who I am. Understand that my world is dangerous and complicated, but that I never lied about caring for you. He laughed bitterly. You're giving me the choice now? After 3 years of lies. I'm giving you the choice I should have given you from the beginning. The choice I was too afraid to offer because I thought I'd lose you. You did lose me. I cheated on you, remember? I remember. And you're going to pay for that. But that's separate from this conversation.
He looked up sharply.
Pay for it how? Your gambling debt? I own it. I've owned it for 2 weeks. I'm the one who called it in early, who created the pressure that led to your kidnapping. His face went white. You what? I orchestrated your suffering. Systematically.
Carefully.
As revenge for your betrayal. You're insane. Maybe. Or maybe I'm just someone who doesn't forgive betrayal. I leaned forward. Brian, you asked if any of it was real. The relationship, the feelings.
Yes.
They were. But so is this, the part of me that doesn't let people who hurt me walk away unscathed. He stared at me like I was a stranger, which I supposed I was. I need time, he said finally, to process this. All of this. You have 24 hours. Then I need an answer. Stay or go. And if I go to the police? Then you'll discover exactly how deep my influence runs. And you'll regret it. It wasn't a threat, just a fact. Maya arrived with medical supplies, checked Brian's injuries, minor bruising, nothing serious, and gave him painkillers. After she left, Brian looked at me one more time. I don't know who you are anymore, he said quietly. I'm both. Helen and Crimson Phoenix. The accountant and the crime boss. The woman who made you lunch and the woman who just saved your life. All of it's real. All of it's me. How do you live like that? How do you keep it all separate? I don't. Not anymore. I stood. That's what today taught me. I can't keep living two lives. Something has to give. What are you going to do? What I should have done from the beginning. Stop hiding. I left Brian at the safe house with guards outside his door. For his protection, I told him, though we both knew it was also to ensure he didn't do anything stupid. Then I went to deal with problem number 2, Blanca. She'd been calling me all day, panicking about her situation. I'd ignored every call while handling Brian's rescue. Now, sitting in my car outside her apartment building, I called her back. Helen. Oh, thank God. Where have you been? I've been trying to reach you for hours. I had an emergency. What's wrong? What's wrong? Everything's wrong. I got evicted. My landlord said I'm 2 months behind on rent, but I paid last month, I swear I did. Did you check your bank account? Maybe the payment didn't go through. I know I messed up, but you didn't mess up. You made a calculated choice to sleep with my boyfriend because you were jealous of what I have. You wanted to take something from me to prove you were better. That's not. It is. I have the messages to prove it. The ones where you told your influencer friends how unfair it was that I had money and you didn't. The ones where you said sleeping with Brian was evening the playing field. Tears streamed down her face. You went through my messages? I did worse than that. I hired investigators to examine every aspect of your life. I bought your debts. I destroyed your career. I made you feel exactly as disposable as you made me feel. Helen. And here's the best part. I continued, my voice cold. I did all of this while pretending to forgive you, while you cried and apologized and promised to be better, while I played the understanding friend. Blanca stood up, backing away from me. Who are you? I'm the woman you betrayed. I'm the friend you underestimated. And I'm someone you really should have been more afraid of. I'm calling the police. And telling them what? That your former friend destroyed your influencer career? That's not illegal, Blanca. It's just karma. She grabbed her purse, headed for the door. Wait, I said. She turned, her face streaked with tears and terror. I have an opportunity for you.
A job.
Real work with a real salary. Why would I ever work for you after what you just told me? Because you're broke, homeless, and about to be sued. Because I'm offering you a lifeline. And because if you refuse, I'll make sure every door in this city stays closed to you. You're blackmailing me. I'm giving you a choice. Take the job, work hard, prove you can be trusted, and maybe, we can salvage something from this. I'll never trust you again.
Good.
That's smart. But you will work for me because you don't have any other options. She stood there, trembling, caught between pride and desperation. What kind of job? Marketing coordinator at an art gallery. Social media management, event planning. Things you're actually good at. And the catch? You'll be working for one of my companies. Under my rules. With constant supervision. One of your companies? Helen, you're an accountant. I'm a lot more than that. Which brings me to the third person we need to talk to.
Who?
Brian. He's waiting in the other room. Her face went even paler. Brian's here.
He is.
And he has something very interesting to tell you about who I really am. I opened the door to my guest room. Brian emerged, looking haunted. He'd cleaned up, changed into spare clothes I kept at the penthouse, but his eyes were still wild with the shock of the day's revelations. He saw Blanca and stopped. Blanca. Brian. She looked between us. What's going on? Helen isn't who we thought she was, he said quietly. He looked at me. You tell her. I still don't fully believe it myself. I smiled. Blanca, meet Crimson Phoenix.
Blanca laughed.
It was a nervous, disbelieving sound. Crimson Phoenix? Like the crime boss? Helen, that's not funny. It's not a joke. I pulled up my phone, showed her a photo from this morning's rescue operation. Me in tactical gear, gun drawn, very clearly in command. Her laughter died. That's photoshopped. It has to be. Brian spoke up. It's not. I was there. Well, I was tied up, but I saw her. She shot someone, Blanca. She orchestrated a military-style rescue operation.
No.
Blanca shook her head. No, you're Helen Tran. You're an accountant. You bring Tupperware lunch to work. You do yoga. I'm both, I interrupted. By day, I'm Helen Tran. By night, I'm Crimson Phoenix. I inherited my father's criminal organization 5 years ago, and I've been running it ever since. Your father, the one who died when you were in college? Was murdered by a rival family. Yes. This is insane. Blanca sank onto the couch. You're telling me that you, quiet, boring Helen, run the biggest criminal organization in the city? Boring is such a harsh word. I prefer methodically discreet. And your inheritance? The money that paid for this penthouse came from my organization. The distant aunt was a cover story. She looked at Brian. Did you know? I found out this morning, when she shot someone to rescue me. Why did you need rescuing? Because I had gambling debts to the wrong people. People who turned out to be connected to a rival boss who's currently at war with Helen, with Crimson Phoenix, and decided to use me as leverage. Blanca's face cycled through emotions too quickly to track. So, the eviction, the car repossession, losing all my sponsors. That was me, I confirmed. Using my resources as Crimson Phoenix to systematically destroy your life as revenge for sleeping with my boyfriend. You had me evicted because I slept with Brian? I had you evicted because you betrayed me. Sleeping with Brian was just the catalyst. That's psychotic. Maybe. Or maybe it's just effective. I sat down across from them both. For 3 years, I kept these worlds separate. Helen Tran and Crimson Phoenix never touched. I thought I was protecting you both by hiding who I really was. Protecting us? Brian's voice rose. You manipulated us. You orchestrated our suffering. I gave you exactly what you gave me, I interrupted coldly. Betrayal. Humiliation. The feeling of having your world destroyed by someone you trusted. We didn't destroy your world, Blanca protested. Didn't you? You took the one piece of my life that felt normal and violated it. You made me question everything about our friendship. You made me feel like I wasn't enough. So, you decided to play God with our lives?
No.
I decided to remind you both that actions have consequences. That betraying people is dangerous. That you never really know who you're dealing with. They both stared at me like I was a stranger, which was fair because to them I was. What happens now? Blanca asked finally. Now we make a choice. All of us. I stood, walked to my window. Outside, the city sparkled. My city. The one I controlled from the shadows. Viktor Kozlov discovered my identity. He's threatening to expose me publicly unless I cede territory and power. He used Brian as leverage to prove he could touch my civilian life. So this is about more than revenge, Brian said. It always was. But your betrayal happened at exactly the wrong time. It made me realize I couldn't keep living 2 lives. Something had to give. What are you going to do? I'm going to do what I should have done from the beginning. Stop hiding. You're going to reveal yourself? Blanca's eyes went wide. Publicly? Strategically. On my own terms, controlling the narrative before Viktor can weaponize the information. That's insane, Brian said. You'll be arrested, prosecuted, destroyed. Or, I turn back to face them. I'll become something unprecedented. A crime boss operating openly, using legitimacy as armor, making myself too public to eliminate. That doesn't work, Blanca argued. Crime bosses can't operate in the open. Not traditionally, no. But I've spent 5 years building legitimate businesses, maintaining legal distance from most criminal operations. If I frame the reveal correctly, if I present myself as someone reforming the criminal underworld, reducing violence, cooperating with authorities, I might survive. You're gambling with your life, Brian said. I've been gambling with my life since I inherited this organization. At least this way, I'm controlling the bet. Maya arrived then, letting herself in with the key I'd given her years ago. She assessed the scene, me by the window, Brian and Blanca on the couch looking shell-shocked, and nodded. They know, she observed. They know. How'd they take it? About as well as expected. Maya set down her briefcase. Victor's people just released a statement. They're calling a press conference tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. They're planning to expose you. Then we move faster. I looked at my phone. It was 8 p.m. We call our own press conference. Tonight, 10 p.m. Give us 2 hours to prepare. Boss, are you sure about this? I'm sure that I'm tired of hiding. I'm sure that Victor's not going to beat me. And I'm sure that if I'm going down, it's going to be on my terms. I turned to Brian and Blanca. You both have decisions to make. You can leave now, distance yourselves from what's about to happen. Or you can stay, be part of this, and accept that your lives will change forever. Why would we stay? Blanca asked. After what you've done to us? Because despite everything, you're still the people who know Helen Tran best. You're the ones who can testify that I'm more than just a criminal. That I'm someone capable of caring about normal things, of having normal relationships, of being human. You want us to defend you? Brian's voice was incredulous. I want you to tell the truth, whatever that truth is. If you hate me, say so. If you think I'm a monster, say so. But if any part of our relationships was real, if any of the good times we shared mattered, then maybe mention that too. They looked at each other. Some silent communication passed between them. Finally, Brian spoke. I'll stay. Not because I forgive you, not because I understand, but because you saved my life today, and I owe you a debt. Blanca hesitated longer. If I stay, if I help you, do I get the job you mentioned? Yes. And my debts? The lawsuit. I'll handle all of it. Clean slate.
Why?
Why would you do that after what I did? Because I'm not my father. He would have had you both killed for betraying him. I'm choosing a different path. How'd they take it? About as well as expected. Maya set down her briefcase. Victor's people just released a statement. They're calling a press conference tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. They're planning to expose you. Then we move faster. I looked at my phone. It was 8 p.m. We call our own press conference. Tonight, 10 p.m. Give us 2 hours to prepare. Boss, are you sure about this? I'm sure that I'm tired of hiding. I'm sure that Victor's not going to beat me. And I'm sure that if I'm going down, it's going to be on my terms. I turned to Brian and Blanca. You both have decisions to make. You can leave now, distance yourselves from what's about to happen. Or you can stay, be part of this, and accept that your lives will change forever. Why would we stay? Blanca asked. After what you've done to us? Because despite everything, you're still the people who know Helen Tran best. You're the ones who can testify that I'm more than just a criminal. That I'm someone capable of caring about normal things, of having normal relationships, of being human. You want us to defend you? Brian's voice was incredulous. I want you to tell the truth, whatever that truth is. If you hate me, say so. If you think I'm a monster, say so. But if any part of our relationships was real, if any of the good times we shared mattered, then maybe mention that too. They looked at each other. Some silent communication passed between them. Finally, Brian spoke. I'll stay. Not because I forgive you, not because I understand, but because you saved my life today, and I owe you a debt. Blanca hesitated longer. If I stay, if I help you, do I get the job you mentioned? Yes. And my debts? The lawsuit. I'll handle all of it. Clean slate.
Why?
Why would you do that after what I did? Because I'm not my father. He would have had you both killed for betraying him. I'm choosing a different path. She nodded slowly. Then I'll stay. But Helen? After this is over, we're done. I can't be friends with someone who terrifies me. That's fair. The next 2 hours were chaos. Maya coordinated with media contacts, secured a venue, prepared legal documentation. Dante assembled my core team, briefed them on the situation, ensured security was airtight. I changed into a suit, not Helen Tran's conservative business wear, not Crimson Phoenix's tactical gear. Something in between. Professional but powerful. At 9:45 p.m., we arrived at the venue, a hotel conference room downtown, rapidly filling with journalists who'd been alerted to a major announcement. Victor's people were there too. I could see them in the crowd, watching, waiting to see if I'd actually go through with this. At 10 p.m. exactly, I walked to the podium. Cameras flashed. Journalists shouted questions. The room fell silent as I raised my hand. Good evening. My name is Helen Tran. I'm also known as Crimson Phoenix. The room erupted. Cameras clicked frantically. Journalists shouted over each other. I waited for the noise to subside. For 5 years, I've lived 2 lives. By day, I'm an accountant. By night, I run what many of you would call a criminal organization. I inherited this position from my father when he was murdered by a rival family. I was 23 years old and had 2 choices: let the organization collapse or take control. I paused, making eye contact with cameras, with journalists, with Victor's people in the back. I chose to take control. And I chose to do something my father never managed, to make the organization less violent, more controlled, more focused on operations that didn't destroy communities. Are you admitting to criminal activity? A journalist shouted. I'm admitting that I've operated in gray areas, that I've made choices most people would find morally questionable. But I'm also telling you that I've reduced violent crime in the city by 40% over the past 5 years by bringing competing factions under unified leadership. Why reveal yourself now? Another journalist asked. Because someone threatened to expose me anyway. Because I'm tired of hiding. And because I believe it's possible to reform criminal organizations from within, to make them less destructive while acknowledging they'll never completely disappear. I pulled out documents Maya had prepared. These files contain evidence of my legitimate business operations. Bank records. Tax filings. Proof that while I've operated in gray areas, I've maintained legal distance from most prosecutable offenses. So, you're saying you're not a criminal? The skepticism was clear. I'm saying I'm complicated. Like this city. Like most people who operate in spaces between legal and illegal. I leaned forward. I'm offering authorities a choice. Prosecute me, which will be difficult given my legal safeguards, or work with me to reduce crime in this city even further. That's insane, a journalist muttered. Maybe. Or maybe it's pragmatic. I looked directly at the camera. Viktor Kozlov, if you're watching, you tried to use my civilian life as a weapon. You failed. You tried to expose me on your terms. I beat you to it. And now, I'm making you obsolete. I nodded to Dante, who distributed folders to the journalists. Those files contain evidence of Viktor Kozlov's operations. Human trafficking. Drug distribution. Murder. Everything I've avoided in my 5 years of leadership. Everything that makes him genuinely dangerous, while I'm just inconvenient. The room exploded again. I stepped away from the podium, letting Maya field questions. Brian and Blanca stood in the back, watching. I'd done it. Revealed myself. Controlled the narrative. Now I'd find out if I'd made a brilliant move or committed suicide. The fallout was immediate and intense. By midnight, my face was on every news channel. Criminal mastermind reveals identity. Crime boss operating in plain sight. The double life of Helen Tran. Social media exploded. Some called me a hero for reducing violence. Others demanded my immediate arrest. Most were just fascinated by the audacity. Authorities were slower to respond. By morning, the district attorney's office issued a statement. We are reviewing the evidence provided and will determine appropriate action. Translation: they had no idea what to do with me. Viktor Kozlov, on the other hand, knew exactly what to do. He disappeared. Within 6 hours of my press conference, Viktor's known properties were empty. His lieutenants scattered. His organization effectively dissolved. Dante brought me the news at 6 a.m., finding me in my penthouse, drinking coffee and reading social media reactions. Viktor's gone, he said. Probably out of the country by now. His organization? Fragments. Some fled. Others are reaching out, asking to join us. And the authorities? Watching. Waiting. They've frozen some assets but haven't made arrests. They're trying to figure out if you're more useful as an asset than a defendant. I smiled.
Good.
That was the plan. Boss, you realize you might have pulled off the impossible? You might actually survive this. Might, I agreed. Or they might arrest me tomorrow. Time will tell.
My phone rang.
Maya. Good news and bad news, she said without preamble. Good news. The DA wants to meet. They're interested in your proposal to cooperate in reducing violent crime. Bad news. You're now the most famous person in the city, and that comes with complications. What kind of complications?
Death threats.
Wannabe vigilantes. People who think you're responsible for every unsolved crime. Also, your employer called. Morrison and Associates has terminated your position effective immediately. I laughed. I expected that. What do you want to do? Set up the meeting with the DA. Draft immunity agreements. And Maya?
Thank you.
For everything. That's what lawyers are for. After I hung up, I found Brian in my guest room. He was packing his few belongings, preparing to leave. You don't have to go, I said from the doorway. He turned. Yes, I do. Helen, or Crimson Phoenix, or whoever you are now, I can't be part of this world. It's too much. Too dangerous. Too far outside anything I understand. I understand. Do you? He set down his bag. Last night, you stood in front of cameras and casually admitted to running a criminal empire. Like it was normal. Like it was just another Tuesday. That's not the woman I thought I was dating.
No.
But she was never the complete woman. Just the parts one thought you could handle. That's my point. You never let me decide what I could handle.
You decided for me.
Just like you decided to orchestrate my suffering. Just like you've been deciding everything from the beginning. He was right. I'd been controlling both my lives so tightly that I'd never given anyone else agency. I'm sorry, I said. For lying.
For manipulating you.
For not trusting you with the truth. Are you sorry for the revenge? For destroying my life? I thought about it.
No.
You betrayed me. That deserved consequences. He laughed bitterly. At least you're honest about that. I'm trying to be honest about everything now. It's exhausting but necessary. Good luck with that. He picked up his bag. For what it's worth, I told the truth at your press conference last night. That you were a good girlfriend. That you made me laugh. That parts of what we had were real. I know. I heard. But Helen? I also told them you terrify me. That I'll never feel completely safe around you. That was true too. I know. He walked past me, paused at the door. I hope you find peace. Whatever that looks like for someone like you. Then he was gone. She turned when she heard my footsteps. Helen Tran. Or should I say, Crimson Phoenix II. Who are you? Your father's sister. Your aunt. The one you told everyone had left you an inheritance. I went very still. My father told me all his family was dead. He told you that to protect us. To keep us separate from his world. She smiled. But when I saw your press conference, when I heard you claim my fabricated identity, I decided it was time we met. Why now? Because you did something your father never managed. You brought our family's organization into the light. You made it legitimate. You survived. What do you want? To meet the woman who accomplished what 3 generations of our family couldn't. To tell you that your father would be proud.
She paused.
And to offer help if you need it. Family should support the family. I studied her, looking for the lie, the trap. Found only genuine interest. I don't need help. But I wouldn't mind my family. She smiled. Then you'll have. 6 months after the press conference, I stood at my father's grave. It was the first time I'd visited since revealing my identity. Before, I'd been too afraid of being followed, of someone connecting Helen Tran to Crimson Phoenix. Now, I didn't have to hide. I did it. I told the gravestone. I survived. I transformed the organization. I made it something you couldn't have imagined. The wind rustled through the cemetery trees. I also made mistakes. Kept too many secrets. Hurt people I cared about. Let my need for control destroy relationships. I set down flowers. white chrysanthemums, traditional for honoring the dead. But I'm learning, trying to be better, trying to be both Helen and Crimson Phoenix without letting either identity consume the other. A car approached. Dante, giving me my time here but staying close for security. I turned to leave, then paused. One more thing.
Viktor Kozlov.
The man who tried to expose me? He was found in Moscow 2 months ago. Accidentally fell from a hotel window. I smiled. I thought you'd appreciate knowing that some traditions still hold. Betrayal still has consequences. And Crimson Phoenix still protects what's hers. I walked back to the car, feeling lighter than I had in months. 4 or 5 years, I'd lived 2 lives, terrified of anyone discovering the truth. Now everyone knew, and I was still standing. Stronger, actually, because I wasn't hiding anymore. I was both. Helen and Crimson Phoenix. Accountant and crime boss. Ordinary and extraordinary. And I refused to apologize for either. 1 year later, the gallery opening was packed with city elite. Politicians, business leaders, artists, journalists, and one former accountant who now openly ran legitimate businesses funded by a reformed criminal empire. I moved through the crowd in a designer dress, accepting congratulations on the new exhibition, discussing art with people who used to be terrified of Crimson Phoenix and were now just impressed by Helen Tran. My aunt stood near the wine bar, chatting with her social circle. She'd become a silent partner in several of my businesses, providing connections and legitimacy. Blanca managed the event with practiced efficiency. We'd never be close again, but we'd found a working relationship that suited us both. Brian had sent a card.
Short, polite. Wishing me well.
We'd never speak again, probably. But the hatred had faded to indifference. That was enough. Maya found me near the paintings. The mayor just RSVP'd for next month's charity gala. We're officially respectable. Officially, I agreed. How terrifying. How liberating, you mean? She was right. It was liberating. For the first time in my life, I wasn't hiding. Wasn't pretending to be someone I wasn't. Wasn't splitting myself into pieces to please people who'd never fully know me. I was just me. All of me. The parts that did taxes and the parts that negotiated with criminals. The parts that cared about art and the parts that understood violence. The parts that made lunch in Tupperware and the parts that commanded an organization. All of it real. All of it honest. All of it mine. Dante appeared at my elbow. Boss, we have a situation. I smiled at Maya. Excuse me. Crime boss duties call. You mean security consultant duties. Same difference. I followed Dante to my office, ready to handle whatever problem needed solving. Because that was my life now. Complex, messy, sometimes dangerous, but completely authentic. I'd walked in on my partner and best friend betraying me. They'd had no idea who I really was. And that revelation had changed everything.
Not just for them. For me.
I'd stopped hiding. Stopped apologizing for being both soft and hard, gentle and deadly, ordinary and extraordinary. I'd claimed every inch of who I was. And that was more powerful than any secret identity could ever be. The end. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. But Helen Tran learned something better. The best revenge is becoming so completely yourself that hiding becomes impossible. She didn't just punish her betrayers. She liberated herself from the prison of secrecy, from the exhaustion of maintaining 2 lives, from the fear of being fully seen. She claimed her power publicly, merged her identities, and became unstoppable, not because she was perfect, but because she was authentically, unapologetically herself.